Hello everybody, this is Devin Francis, aka Leonard Meltzer, and I am at FanExpo Vancouver right now. Very exciting here. And you're watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Let's see if we can sneak over to Billy Boyd. You see him through there he is in the back by this thing there. Let's see if we can see Tom Felton. Let's run around. Look at all the people. So much cosplay. I'm having a wonderful time. Alright. And sorry. There's Tom Felton sitting there. Alright. Enjoy the episode. Hello,
hey
everybody of the internet. This is Devin Francis, aka Leonard Meltzner.
And this is Victoria Francis. Oh, I said my name for once.
And you're watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast, episode 34. Wow, so many episodes. They're so long.
We're sorry.
Yeah. So, what are we doing today?
We are recording a review for Mission Unaccomplished and Buried Sin.
And Mission Unaccomplished Part
1.
Yes.
Because Part 2 is not out yet, because this is totally the right month.
It's May. Yes. May is the month which we are currently in. May showers, rainy, all that.
Anyway.
Hot. So we're going to talk about these episodes today, and hopefully you like what we talk about. And that's about it. So let's get into it. Mission Unaccomplished Part 1, Episode 743, written by Kathy Buchanan. Victoria, please tell us what happens in this episode.
Honestly, not much happens in this one. Like, barely anything
I didn't know if it was just me, because I normally, when I listen to these episodes for annotating them for the Oddcast, I listen to them all at once, but this one I listened to in about 7 little chunks, because it was the day that Mom and I were doing standard first aid. I was listening to it like on our breaks and the drive there and back and stuff, and so I thought maybe that's why it seemed to me like nothing really happened in the episode. But Victoria correlated my emotions, so.
Yeah. So in this episode, the Parker family goes on vacation, and was it Africa? They go on a mission.
Kenya, yes.
Yeah, they go on
Nairobi,
a mission trip.
Just outside Nairobi.
And so in this episode, the Parker family goes on a missions trip.
Look, I'm a ventriloquist. I can drink water and Victoria can talk at the same time.
Anyway, so during this trip, Camilla takes up knitting. Olivia tries to make a documentary. David tries to help with rebuilding and fixing up things in the village. Ava tries to help with nursing the residents. And Matthew tries to find a monkey. Nicely
done. And upgrade the computers.
What?
And
and I forgot about that one. The keyword in all of these, excepting Camilla, who actually knits a heck of a lot in this episode.
She knits pants.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do.
No.
Not that I know, but...
Anyway, so the key word in this episode is tries, because no matter how hard the Parker family tries to help out, and Linda, hand up. Yeah, I thought you'd like that part. Devin never knows what the descriptions are in advance. So. No one needs their help. Also, Matthew, there's this thing about Matthew almost drowning or something like that.
It's just in the cover art.
Yeah.
It's all...
No, it's not. They're
for the episode
fixing a car or something like that.
No, that's part 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Cover art for part 1 is Matthew drowning and getting thrown the rope.
Anyway, so Matthew almost drowns while he is monkey searching with Olivia, but then he's saved by a boy who collapses after saving Matthew. And the episode ends with the boy now unconscious, and it's revealed that he has heart issues. Oh, yeah, you're right, it is Matthew drowning. So he has heart issues, and we totally called it, because those heart issues are...
He had, what was it? It was, What were the exact words? Before my big rant. Ventricular septal perforation. Well, technically she said a ventricular septal defect, but it was a hole, so a perforation, basically. I'm not sure if perforation implies that it was punctured by something, because I think he was probably born with that hole. But
in our last review,
I didn't realize this until Victoria pointed it out.
If you go back in our last review, when we were talking about Drake the Cosmic Copper, and Jason was talking about his weird nose septum thingy.
Said he had a deviated septum in his nose, and that's why he made the weird
we were making
noise.
jokes about that, and I said, imagine if you had a deviated septum in your heart, and Devin said that would be a little bit more serious.
I was explaining what the septum was in your nose, and I said you also have one in your heart down the middle of it, because it just means like a dividing wall between two halves. I said that a deviated septum in your nose would be a lot better than having one in your heart.
And we made jokes about that, but that actually happened in this episode, so
yeah, so
we're pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's dive into it. I don't have much to say about this episode because not much happened.
Yeah.
Honestly, this episode was kind of boring, in my opinion. Other than the parts with Matthew drowning, those were the only parts where I'm like, okay, it has my attention.
I just remembered looking at my notes here. You just joined me from FanExpo at the beginning of this video. We put that in there, where I caught Billy Boyd and Tom Felton on camera, and I bought that Keyblade for Victoria that you saw last week.
And Billy Boyd and Tom Felton are
Pippin and Draco Malfoy.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot that was at the beginning of this video.
And Harry Potter.
I was supposed to mention that at the beginning, but I just remembered now. So
good job, Dev.
Yes. Okay, so once again, as always, the opening tidbit thingy of the episode hits the nail perfectly on the head. I adore road trips.
Shout out to
but we don't know that yet.
Oh.
Because you can listen. I thought of that too. I adore road trips personally because you can listen to so much Odyssey on them.
Except for us, because our dad doesn't really like Odyssey.
Well, we can still listen to it. We just can't put it on the stereo.
Yeah, we still listen to it. It's just he complains.
No, I mean we can use our headphones.
True.
More John Campbell African music.
Yeah, my first thought during this one is Devin's going to be so happy
because
that is your favorite.
Yeah, it's still not as good as the do 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 do.
I don't know what you're talking about. Just carry
on.
Talking, doing it more isn't gonna help, Dev. Just
so good. I thought it was really interesting. I'm sure Vic, probably since you just finished Socials 11, you'll have, I don't know, maybe some thoughts on this. That this boy here in almost Nairobi has the idea that because of his illness, that he's not worth enough to his family to keep around for the cost that it's worth to them. Because in China, this is a common thing with girls because of the one-child-only policy, where parents will often abort their child because she's female and they need a strong boy to work the farm, but they can only have one kid. I'm guessing you probably talked about that a lot.
Well, I've known that for years.
Well, I know, but we talked about it a lot when I was in Salesman almost.
Yeah.
Matthew, yeah.
I thought of Fitz. The monkey thing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
084. Yeah. Matthew's voice, I was pretty sure that this was still Zach Callison post-voice change.
I thought it was, because I thought you told me in this two-parter.
Yeah, I couldn't remember, but I was not sure. Because I knew that Zach's voice had changed and they were going to be replacing him. I was pretty sure that he was still going to be Matthew in this one, but his voice sounded so different. I was honestly not sure if it was actually Zach Callison or the new guy.
Can you look it up?
I know it is. I did check. This was Zach Callison.
Okay. Yeah,
this is the last two parts.
I thought it was.
This
but when I listened to him, I'm like, whoa. It would be really awkward if his replacement has a higher up voice. So it'll be for random 2 episodes, his voice is way deeper, and then
yeah. I mean, I can still hear the vague similarity to younger Zach Callison.
I can still hear it.
Still very different voice.
I'm kind of sad that he's leaving.
And yeah, you can see next note I made. He was doing the tech upgrades, but all he really wants to do is see a monkey. So Matthew is really just Leopold Fitz.
Fitz.
Fitzsimmons.
It's giving me Fitz.
It's interesting that the Parkers would go to Africa so close to Wit and Wooten's trip. Woot and Witten's trip for seemingly unrelated reasons, unless of course it's Wit and Wooten that inspired them to go on the trip. Hoot and holler, hoot and holler. I don't know.
I found it kind of, surprising that they would have 2 missions trip episodes this close together. I mean, I knew that's what the club would be like. I figured they'd all be episodes kind of like that.
Me too.
But
so
still, it kind of...
I thought maybe that Wit and Wooten were going to stay in Africa for, like, the whole season or something like that.
After finding out that there's, like, other episodes that don't have to do with missions trips, it just kind of seemed weird having 2 episodes that close together.
I said that later on, especially because the pilot was right before the Adventure Club, too.
Yeah, so, like, Ava just went on, like, almost a back-to-back trip.
Yeah, I know.
So...
I realized that Ava was in the pilot, too. I was really curious from the early point where this episode was going to go, because,
No, it would have made this episode 10 times better if the person who flew them down was Jeff.
It would have.
Jeff, come back!
It's based on the title, Mission Unaccomplished, and the fact that the Parkers are all seeming, like, overly eager to help with things that's looking like they can't help with. I was guessing that this episode was going to have to do something with, like, people's savior complex that they have a lot when it comes to missions in Africa or underdeveloped areas in general. Like the idea that you're the one to save the world by doing this and that concrete task, and that's not really how things work, but we treat missions and charity work like that a lot of the time, and I'll talk at length about that later.
The football thing was funny.
No, that's football. Americans.
I'm not gonna linger on that one because it will just end badly.
Yeah. So yeah, Matthew almost drowned. The baby got delivered. I was definitely thinking now that I was right about the idea that we're not needed in the ways that we realize. I was sort of close in what my ideas were about it. I said it's kind of like Wooten Knows Best, where we looked at the importance of connecting to people rather than performing actions. Also kind of like Martha and Mary's thing. You know, serving Jesus isn't the same as being with him.
I was gonna say something, but I can't remember what it is now. I felt bad for David, because, like, he's, like, dying in this episode. He's not dying, just so you guys know, he's not dying. He like, keeps on injuring himself and stuff like that. And... so, like, it kind of makes Ava feel better because she actually has someone to tend to. If she delivered the baby, though, it would have been the second baby she's delivered in this series. If you think about it.
Although one of them was a digital baby.
Yeah, but still, she's only been around for, like, not very many albums, and that's, like...
That's true.
That's, like, a record for Odyssey, because...
Especially since that other baby she delivered was literally last album. Feels like forever ago, but... It's a lot of babies in a short span of time.
Yeah,
although technically that baby was like 3,000 years ago.
So?
A little over 3,000 years ago-ish.
Delivering a baby would be like 10 times harder back then. That counts for like 10. So she's delivered 11 babies.
Touché.
Since she entered the series.
I thought it was really funny. As I was saying earlier, I was doing standard first aid this last weekend with my mother. And I was on break at the course while I was writing this particular part. And we had just gone off break from doing splints for breaks and fractures and stuff, and I was listening to Ava splinting and treating David's fracture, so I thought it was funny. I was kind of like looking at Mom, but I had my headphones in, so I knew she had no idea what I was doing.
Just like start nudging her and be like, and she's like, what are you doing?
Trying to talk to Kennedy. So yeah, like Victoria said, it makes sense that we'd have 2 medical-related stories in Africa so close together since, you know, the OAC is focused on mission-related stuff, but it still seems really weird. Ava is also traveling as a nurse in developing areas in these episodes and in the pilot.
Like, that's not really the weird thing, though, because it's kind of logical that she would be doing nurse work. But
well, so I said, you know, actually maybe their trip here is sort of related to her regular trips that she does with Dr. Graham.
Where did they go?
That was South America. In the pilot.
Yeah, but more specific.
I don't remember. It was
Bad
northern.
Odyssey fan.
It was mid-northern South America.
So not
it was like
near
Guatemala
Kenya?
or something like that. Kenya's in Africa.
Not near Kenya.
No, it's not near Kenya.
So why would you think this has to do?
Well,
also,
not
Dr.
with the-
Graham isn't on this trip.
Well, I know, but I'm saying the fact that Ava is involved with, like, going on trips, acting as a nurse, not necessarily the same place, but going around, involved with going to different places as a traveling nurse, that could be related to why they went on the trip, and this time she decided to go with compassion, and she brought her family along with her. See what I mean? And yeah, for those who aren't into biology, a ventricular septal perforation is much worse than it sounds. And it sounds pretty bad already.
Whenever they say, like, heart issues, I'm always like, oh, snap, this is bad. Like, no matter what it is.
Unless
I
they
just
mean
assume
it
it's going to be
spiritually.
really bad. Well, of course.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's bad too, probably. But anyways, so that's my notes, super fast for part 1 on the actual, like, my minute-by-minute life blogging
like
kind
we
of notes.
said, not much to say about this one.
And now I have my rant about what I thought
Okay.
this episode was about. One of Devin's spiritual rants. Okay. So until my comment, I wrote my comment on the OAC because each month they have, like, the episode and then things you go through, and you have to, like, get each one checked off to complete the adventure, and the last thing is always to make a comment. And I wrote a comment, and I was like, ooh, this is good, all this, because I wrote so much here, I should actually just copy and paste this into my notes for the review. But then as soon as I hit submit, it disappeared, and it didn't appear in the comment section, because you have to wait for someone to approve it. So I was like, well, that's just great. It's probably on there now, but because it was that, I just paraphrased what I wrote in here. So I spoke earlier about how I feel that this episode was trying to point out how our society has this savior complex towards places like Africa. And I think the very fact that I can say places like Africa makes my point perfectly. And I don't think the episode was going down this track exactly the same way that my mind was, but I would like to share it nonetheless. Basically, what I'm talking about is the fact that in our society, and by which I mean Western society, and my apologies to people from other places may not go through this. So in both spiritual and secular circles, we have this idea about charity and missions, that it's our duty to save Africa and save South America and save this other underdeveloped area. And while we don't intend to do so, we perpetuate what is basically a very racist idea. It's the same ideas of Victorian Africa that you see in Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. To believe that we, in and of ourselves, can save Africa is perpetuating the idea that we are above it. It's the idea that we're the strong and smart and powerful white man, John Smith, come to save the savage Pocahontas out of the slums of savagery. And I realize, obviously, not everyone is like this. And we definitely should go out into the world and help with physical needs and provide spiritual comfort. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's a very good thing. It's the point of this episode, partially. But we need to acknowledge that we are not the ones who are doing the saving here. We are an empty vessel by which God is working through us in another place. We are still on the same level as everyone else, and people on both ends of this missional process, us and them, will receive equal blessings through it because we are equal. Even to think that, like, if we say, like, we make ourselves equal to them for mission's sake, shows that, you know, we are thinking that we are above them and we are making ourselves equal by getting down off our pedestal to their level for their sake. And the sooner we realize that we're all in the same boat and dependent on the same God for the same things, the sooner that some ideas like this can die out. That being said, I am not saying that you, the viewer, are doing this or that the Parkers are doing this. It's simply a vibe that I picked up around the beginning of the episode and it kind of stuck in my mind and I wanted to talk about it, regardless of its relevance to the overall plot of the episode. However, I still think that it bears at least some relevance to the episode, because it sort of shows in the way that the Parkers were so disappointed that they couldn't help with the physical needs of the compound in the way that they preconceived them, like, we have to upgrade the computers and we have to rebuild this stuff without really knowing what was going on there. And yet, so far in these episodes, they've neglected to actually connect with the community there, other than Camilla. And they made a bit of a point about this, and I'm assuming it was meant to be foreshadowing about, they're like, oh, you can go visit the people. They're all over in the compound there. And they're like, no, we just want to get to work. And I understand the idea, you know, you want to get as much done as you can. And this is sort of where my rant meets the mice and men idea that Chris mentioned at the end of the episode of how God changes our plans, as well as, like I said, the Martha and Mary idea of how being with God isn't the same as doing things for him. So that's about it. Yeah, that was my rant. TLDR, smarten up. My predictions for the next episode, we'll do that and then we'll rate it.
I was just going to say a couple more things.
Oh, yes, please do.
So is it just me, or are there a lot of drowning scenes in Odyssey?
Yeah, I actually thought of
Timmy, and I thought it paralleled Connie's.
I thought of
Joanne.
Connie, yeah, that's the first thing I thought of.
It was, I'd
Gentle
say,
River.
I don't know, I thought it was going to be basically identical, but I was surprised that there are actually a lot of changes, which makes sense, because you don't want to, like, line for line copy a scene. But lots of times when people are like, but there were lots of similarities.
Gentle River.
But you can't really get around that when you're doing.
By the time you hit the 743rd episode of a show, there's only so many things you can do without bearing some resemblance to something you've already done. But
even then, they weren't actually that much alike, even though they were a bit alike, if that makes sense. I know it's going to sound horrible. I liked that scene. Thought the football, soccer ball stuff was pretty funny. Felt really bad for David. Yeah. I know we're not I'm not giving a rating, just so you know.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, we don't do ratings yet because it's only part 1.
When it, like, this episode was, I'm probably gonna give, I don't know, even if the next episode is like amazing, mind-blowing, 5 out of 5 by itself, I'm probably going to have to knock off a couple points because of how, to bluntly say it, boring this episode was. So...
it's fair enough.
Yeah.
My predictions for the next episode are the Parkers are going to realize that they've been going about their missions the wrong way. They're going to see that just because the plans they had going into this trip haven't worked out, that doesn't mean that they can't still serve God with whatever he has planned for them. And they're finally going to realize that they should have been connecting with the people on a personal level first, not just gone straight to trying to satisfy the physical needs for people that they didn't know.
My predictions are for the next episode are Matthew's voice is still going to remain deep. The boy's probably not going to die.
He's going to turn out to be an amphibian because he has a 3-chambered heart, apparently. Remember? We were talking about this.
I don't think the boy's going to die. If he does, I'm going to feel really bad.
I highly doubt he's going to die.
I bet the episode's going to end with, like, music, like, Matthew, someone, like Olivia or Camilla or something, will be like, oh, look! And then you're like, yeah, and then Matthew's like, oh, it's a monkey! And
I was like, what are you trying to impersonate?
And then, like, the music, the John Campbell Africa music, which you love so much, will, like, play us out. And I still don't think they're going to be able to do that much, and they're going to have, like, a conversation with, like, the lady, and she's going to be like, why do you want to do so much, and stuff like that.
Because we feel inadequate with our lives. I don't know.
Anyway,
I guess we'll find out.
So I don't really have very many predictions for the next episode.
Yeah, we really didn't have that much to say. My rant there took up like half of this.
I didn't really enjoy this episode that much.
It was fair to middling. So let's go over to an episode that both of us like, probably substantially more.
Woo!
Buried
I'm so
Sin,
excited.
And we'll turn you over right now. And we're back for our next review, which is what, Victoria?
Buried Sin.
Yes.
My second favorite Jared episode, not to reveal what I'm going to give it for a rating.
It's not at all.
Also, I chose this one. So
yes. This is Victoria's pick episode.
The bonus episode for, anyway, the second review episode for this one, which is Buried Sin, and then the second review episode for next review episode.
Next month.
I also chose. I'm not going to say what it is, though, the next one.
Yeah, so today we are doing episode 414, Buried Sin, written by John Beebe.
Okay, hang on to your fedoras, kids, because this one's a mystery and a long storyline. So, Eugene, Jared, and Dwayne accidentally find and then dig up a box hidden under the ground by Woods End. Stop doing that! They take the box to Woods End so that Jack... You better not be doing anything. Go sit in the corner.
What did I do?
Go sit in the corner.
What did I do?
Go sit in the corner.
No.
Go sit over there.
No.
You move.
Tell him about Jared and Dwayne.
Devin's teasing me because I can't spell Dwayne.
Sure, D-W-A-N.
E.
Yeah, but then it said that was wrong, so you took off the E and just wrote Dwan instead. The ugly duckling finally blossomed into a beautiful Dwan.
Go sit in the corner! Buried sin. Eugene, Jared, and Dwayne I almost said Dwayne accidentally... Go stay over there. Eugene, Jared, and Dwayne find and then dig up a box that they accidentally find, which is hidden under the ground by Woods End. And then they take the box to Jack Allen so that he can evaluate how old the box is and its contents. The box contains a fedora, a letter, a gun, and a whole lot of mystery and secrets. Turns out, according to the letter, that the box belonged to a man named Thomas Newcastle, who, when he was a kid, around 80 years ago, shot a man accidentally and then never told anyone about what happened. Later, when he was, they never say how old, a man, he almost married the man whom he shot.
He married the man that he shot?
No, Devin, stop interrupting me.
That's what you said.
No, I was about to say something after that. You ruined it.
Okay.
He almost married the man who he shot's daughter.
That's just poor sentence structure.
The daughter of the man who he shot.
Yes.
He almost married her.
Bingo.
Anyway, but she didn't know this or anyone else. But he ended up not marrying her because he couldn't go through with it because of what he had done to her father. Later on, like about 10 years later, something like that, he buried his sins in the box in the form of the fedora, which you later learn on Thomas got from Rachel, who was the woman he almost married. The gun, which he used to shoot Rachel's father, and the letter, which told his story, Thomas's story. Anyway, later on he buried his sins in the box. So without Jack or Eugene's knowledge, Dwayne and Jared go in search of Thomas Newcastle, and during their search they find out that the man who was murdered was Dwayne's great-grandfather. Great-great-grandfather. So due to this revelation, Dwayne gets really, really angry, and he realizes that he might actually have something that could help with their search, and finds the quote-unquote Dear Thomas letter, something that has been in Dwayne's attic for years. It was written by Rachel Oswald, the woman who Thomas almost married, and who would have been Dwayne's great-grandmother?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so the letter said Rachel forgave Thomas for leaving her. She talked a little bit about and she also forgave him for not telling her what he did to leave her, and talked about how Jesus would also forgive him for whatever he did. Meanwhile, Jack and Eugene finally realize that maybe giving Jared, of all people, and Dwayne a map and a murder mystery stuff to find a killer was not a very good idea. So they call the police in fear of what might happen to the boys. Meanwhile, Jared and Dwayne find Thomas Newcastle, and Dwayne yells at him angrily about what Thomas did to Dwayne's great-grandfather. And then they give him the letter, and right after Thomas reads it, the police show up and apprehend him. And then it cuts to Jack, Eugene, Jared, and Dwayne reburying the box this time, empty though, because Thomas's sins were forgiven and he found God thanks to what the boys did and Jack. They never say if Dwayne forgave him, but yeah. You can come back now, your 5 minutes is up.
5 minutes, indeed. That was very wordy.
Well, it's a complicated story.
I know, I'm just saying it was more of like a detailed plot breakdown than a summary, per se.
Thanks.
Okay, so, to get into the episode, we open upon Eugene singing seasonal felicitations to himself.
It was interesting, because when we first heard this episode, we didn't know what that song was. So after getting the Eugene Sings albums a couple of years ago, we finally got that one.
Well, I kind of knew what it was, but I don't think I ever noticed that he was singing it there. I probably would have known if I'd heard it, because I've heard people mention it before, or I had heard people mention it before. And it's a really nice touch. And it's interesting, because I just checked, and the only time that it is sung in the audio series is in Caroling, Caroling, which was a very long time ago.
No, I didn't know it was ever sung at any other point.
And I was thinking, it's in the Christmas album, right? But I was like, wait a minute, those didn't come out till like album 45, which is a long time after this.
Huh.
So it would be weird if that wasn't a callback to a previous episode. The only time it was sung in the audio series, apart from this, was...
Oh, is it the extended version of Caroling?
Yeah, and it's only...
Okay, I've only listened to that
pretty
once,
sure,
so that explains why I don't remember
I'm pretty sure
that.
it's only in the full 45-minute version of Caroling, Caroling. But however, the song also appeared, the first time it appeared, was in the Electric Christmas AIO movie.
That's a movie?
Yeah.
Do they, get zapped by the imagination station or something like that?
No idea. We'll find out eventually.
Yeah.
I don't know what prompted them to include it in this of all episodes, and I probably never will.
Maybe gardening puts Eugene in the mood to sing Christmas songs he wrote himself.
Possibly. As a biologist...
I know when I'm gardening, I feel the need to sing about rainbows and unicorns, so...
Fair enough. As a biologist, I have a very deep respect for the incredible pioneering work of Gregor Mendel, so I'm very glad that Eugene appreciates his efforts as well. Mendel.
Pretty serious.
Yeah.
That part's so boring.
Mendel was like...
every single time I listen to that, I'm always like, are you serious?
Mendel was such a cool guy, and the intensive work that he did to give us the field of genetics that we have today.
Wait, he did genetics? I thought he did garden peas.
He invented the field of genetics.
Oh, never mind then. I thought
he figured out the laws of genetics by interbreeding peas.
So Eugene is trying to grow mutant vegetables in the back of Wits End.
Yeah, the peas themselves...
Well, that sounds like it's not a health and safety regulation.
The peas themselves...
No wonder they were shut down in album 5 if that's what Eugene's been doing in the back.
They do, and 25 and 50.
Do you think there's radioactive plants back there?
Well, probably. Yeah, the peas don't really have anything to do with Mendel's work apart from, the most surface level sort of thing. He also did other things too, but the peas were his main basis for genetic study, because you can grow them really fast and they have really obvious genetic traits. That's why
I find it interesting that if you think about it, even if Eugene wasn't digging back there and they didn't dig up the box in this episode, they still would have found it in album 50 when they were digging up things around Wits End.
But they were digging in the basement of Wits End. This was in the backyard. It was under the basement of Wits End is where the time capsule was.
Well, way to burst my thought.
Thank you.
My thought bubble.
Speaking of exactly that, I am amazed that...
My thought bubble?
Yes. I am amazed that you can put a shovel into the ground anywhere within 100 feet of Wits End without hitting murder confessions, time capsules, tunnels, bodies, or whatever else is buried with the history of this mysterious building that lives on the edge of McAllister Park.
How scarring would that be if, Lucy was planting a garden of, tulips or something in the backyard and she, uncovered Richard Maxwell's body or something like that?
We're not going to go there.
That would make me cry. I love Richard.
We may scoff at Jared saying that the items were buried in the box because someone ran out of room in the garbage can, but if...
That is what they do in album 50.
Exactly. They look at the stuff in the box, and Jared's like, what, someone run out of room in the garbage can? And they're like, oh, you. So you skip forward 1.5 dozen albums, and we find containers buried in the ground in Odyssey, which are full of trash, because the construction crews couldn't be bothered to just throw them out. Jared was truly a visionary, as I'm sure Victoria will agree.
I love Jared so much. I really love the line, even though it's at the end, I'm going to say it because it has to do with the shoveling. Jared's like, why do I always have to do the dirty work? And then Eugene's like, maybe it's because you're so good at it. Just like the way that he says that. Yeah, Eugene says that line. It's just like so snarky at Jared. I just love it so much.
It actually breathes a little bit of life into the line, which is nice because the line itself is super cliche, so.
Yeah, but with Jared... Nothing's cliche with Jared. Jared's the best character.
I find it a little hard to believe that in 1921 people in Odyssey were still riding horses and toting pistols under their saddles and sporting Western accents.
Well, considering how modernized Odyssey is nowadays, I don't find that hard to believe.
Touché. But, writing that, I know that, I realize also, 1921, though, it really isn't that far from the days of the Old West. But still, this was...
That was right after World War I.
Yeah, that's the next sentence. This was after World War I.
That was like during the recession-ish, around there.
Exactly, that's what I was saying. This was like the roaring 20s.
They had cars back then.
Yeah, the Jazz Age. So I can hardly reconcile the image of society presented in...
Maybe it was a Bennett buggy.
Maybe.
My teacher's watching this. I learned things from socials. Yeah, a Bennett buggy, for those of you who don't know, it was when people didn't have enough gas or, like, an engine in their car. So it was created by President Bennett, and it was like when a horse pulled a car without an engine, which is also something they talk about in Odyssey at one point in Wooten's Broken Pencil show, when they're talking about how they took the... I thought about that when we learned about Bennett buggies. When
I was saying they did that. I was saying if.
Yeah, but they stole a car and they used a horse to pull it. And I'm like, that's just like a Bennett buggy.
If they used a horse to pull it, yes. Yeah, so I mean, this wasn't the Great Depression yet because it was 1921, but this was the Roaring 20s. It was the Jazz Age. Like, I can hardly reconcile the image of society presented in this episode with The Great Gatsby, which I think is also 1921. However, I also have to recognize that those are two entirely different areas and social classes. So what do I know?
I always found that part really confusing as a kid. I still do. Because I'm like, wait, if he's a cowboy, how is he still alive? That was always my thought as a kid. Still think that when I listen to it with those exact same words.
Well, it's very old.
Like, I'm 200 years old. He's the doctor.
He was old in The Mysterious Stranger, let alone now. I mean, that was album 18. This is 32.
He's the doctor.
Is he really now?
Yeah.
He's more like Collared Dex.
It explains why he was alive as a cowboy and still alive.
I think if he was the doctor, he would be the alien doctor, Carla Jex from a town called Mercy. Because he was in the Wild West. So kids, lesson learned, this is why you don't play with guns.
Yeah.
Because you will kill people's parents, and then one day you're going to have to break up with your fiancé because you killed her dad. Dishonored her family.
But it's okay. You're going to get to meet Jack Allen, so it's all worth it.
True. I'm really curious. I don't know a whole lot about, the legal ramifications of this in the States nowadays, let alone what it would have been in 1921. So I really wonder what they would have done to Thomas if he had confessed at that age of, 11 or 12. Would they try...
Well, considering it's painted as the Wild West, they probably would have, put him in the gallows or something like... Or, no, what are they called? Those things?
Stockade?
Yeah, the stockade.
I think that's more like 1700s than...
Well, with Odyssey, you never know.
True. I don't know if they'd try him as an adult or if put him in juvie.
An Old West day in Odyssey.
I don't know how... Every day is Old West day in Odyssey.
True.
I don't know how that works in 1921.
Well, I have a question. Do you think the sound effects are, over the top in the flashback? Because I think they're both good and a little slightly over the top. Not
live show over the top, but maybe they're a little heavy, I guess.
No, I mean, live show is just, jumping jumping past the... It's like they got in Willy Wonka's little glass elevator and then
like,
just shot through the
shot
roof.
to space over the shark.
Yeah. So, live shows. Anyway, but like Odyssey-wise, like normal Odyssey-wise, I'd say it's a little bit over the top. Just like the gunshot, and then you hear like the horse whinny, that's the part I'm talking about.
Ah.
Like
There
the
are a lot
gunshot
of horse
echoing
noises.
is kind of cool, but there's like that. That's kind of...
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. That was my Hal Smith impersonation.
You totally could have been in Beauty and the Beast,
Thank
Victoria.
you. I am Philippe.
The continuity of bringing back Dr. Thomas Newcastle after having him back in The Mysterious Stranger.
That's the same dude?
Yeah.
But isn't he like... He sounds younger in this one.
You didn't know that was the same guy?
I think you told it to me once. I feel like I knew that at one point, and I forgot.
Yeah, that's the same guy.
But he sounds like way younger in this one.
Maybe he's been taking a lot of meds. I don't know. He's a doctor.
No, but like,
self-prescribing.
is he the one that Lucy and Whit went to?
Yeah.
Okay, that
He's the
guy.
one he had just retired in The Mysterious Stranger.
Yeah, but he sounded like super old. No offense to the VA. You know what I mean? You did a good job. I liked your character, but you know what I mean. I'm
Who knows? Maybe he's doing
and
healthier
then
now.
He's like, and he's like super forgetful and stuff like that. He's kind of scramble-minded
Senile.
or whatever.
Scramble-minded.
Whatever
He was
it's
senile.
called. And like now in this one, he sounds like pretty decently young and like all calm and stuff. And
Who knows? Anyways, the continuity bringing
it's
back
an impersonator.
after he was in The Mysterious Stranger in album 18, 14 albums ago, brings a tear to my eye. So beautiful. Continuity.
And a beat to my heart.
Yes. Speaking of the statute of limitation on murder, I have a fun biblical fact for you all.
Oh,
This
boy.
is Devin's fun history Bible science corner. As we all know, probably most of us, Moses originally fled into the wilderness because he had killed an Egyptian slave driver for abusing a Hebrew. There were many witnesses to this event, that's why he had to flee the country. And yet, when he returned so many years later, during the plagues, or I guess not during the plagues, because, he caused them. Well, God caused them.
We know what you mean.
The murder charge was never called against him. This is because, in ancient Egypt, the statute of limitations on crimes, from what I've heard, was the lifespan of the current serving pharaoh.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. So that means it's kind of like the year of Jubilee. So when the pharaoh passed away, all crimes would be forgiven, or murder at least apparently. So since Moses' stepfather had died while he was gone, and then his stepbrother had taken the throne, the murder could no longer be held against him. So that's why it was never brought up again.
About that.
And it makes sense, right? Because, I mean, Pharaoh was, like, hating on Moses so much, you'd think he would have, used that as, like, a way to get rid of him, right? But he never did, so that's
a lot
why.
like the Underground Railroad and, like, slaves escaping and stuff like that. As long
Once
as
you
you
get
can
there, you're free.
Stay away for, like, a certain amount of time, you're good.
Well, that's it. It's like the year of Jubilee in Hebrew, right? Every 7 years, all the slaves are set free, all your debts are forgiven. I was gonna go on to say...
Oh, you skip a lot of stuff, like all the stuff with the microfish.
Fish.
Fish.
Apparently that's Rooster Teeth's best-selling t-shirt is the fish one for some reason.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, so the stuff... I love the stuff in the library with, like...
detective calculator.
Yeah, detective calculator.
With my detective pencil.
And my detective pencil. Detective pencil. And please, only the facts. I love Jared in this episode so much. No, I'm going to do a huge rant on this at the end, but you even start to... Like, this is one of his calmest episodes in the whole series.
True.
Like, probably his calmest episode is Patrick Heart of Fire, but that's because the focus isn't really on him at all. Yeah. But he's like...
We're doing so much Jared stuff lately, in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah, I called it... I said, like, if we did all 4 of these reviews in a month, including the next one, because it's going to have a Jared episode in it.
Spoilers.
I'm not going to say which one it is, though.
Spoilers. If you've paid, like, super freaky attention to all of our past episodes, you probably know which one it's going to be.
You probably can guess, if you know me. Anyway, I call it Jared month.
Jared 4 months.
Yeah, Jared 4 months. Which is even better.
Jared season, I guess. And a bit.
Anyway, so Jared is just shines in this episode like a shooting star. No matter where you are. Anyway.
I was gonna say, I was gonna write something about how I would wonder what would be in my house's attic if we had one when I went into Dwayne's, and then I remembered that I already know because I'm living in it. It's in the basement, but it's still our attic. Exactly what would be in our attic is what I'm currently living inside of. So
if we had an attic.
I don't
Basically, Devin's room is the junk room.
So I don't need to ask that question.
Well, you're just skipping everything, aren't you?
Yes, I'm skipping everything.
Can I do, like, the final rant?
Wait, but for the sake of time, just a second.
Why did you hit me?
Seamless. Absolutely seamless.
He pushed me off the couch and I hit my head on the TV.
So, now that we are continuing to talk to you still and absolutely no time has passed whatsoever, I want to talk a little about the theme of this episode. Because this episode is a wonderful, wonderful...
You skipped over, like, the microfiche machines and, like, the stuff in the attic. And
no, I'm talking about the attic.
Barely. And, like, the Dear Rachel letter and the whole...
I'm getting there right now.
Okay.
This episode is an incredible tale of forgiveness. Rachel suffered terrible, terrible hurt at Thomas's hands without ever understanding his reason for breaking up with her. And now, for some reason, especially those raised with
Those what?
Oh, sorry. I was
Questions?
trying to figure out what my sentence structure was there. I was trying to say, now, for some people, especially those who are raised with Christian principles, the concept of unconditional forgiveness can be pretty easy to grasp. And people who aren't raised Christian too, but Rachel, however, talks in her letter about how she was the type who considered herself above church going. She was one who thought herself a higher level of society than those who believed in God. She was likely the sort of person who believed that religion is merely an emotional crutch for people. This probably means that her worldview throughout most of her life involved her thinking that to forgive people without prompting and without reason was delusional. So for her, so late in life, to have a conversion that was so incredible that God could bring her heart around to forgive Thomas after decades and decades of callous thoughts that she probably had towards him is truly beautiful to think about. And there's also a beauty in the thought that Thomas probably became a doctor to try and make amends for the damage that he caused to the Garrison family. So he could save lives to make up for the one that he took. And it adds so much to the story because the whole shtick here is that Rachel's trying to teach Thomas about forgiveness and not needing to personally atone for your own sins, when that's probably what he was trying to do through his entire life by working as a doctor.
I'm just gonna be over here again.
It's also probably something that he realized over and over that he could never truly do. He could never make things perfect because he was human, and there were people that he couldn't help, like Steven Anderson and the Mysterious Stranger, and there were probably reminders of that fact to him.
That's so sad.
Did you want to go into your rant now, or?
I want you to finish, but
okay.
That reminds me of what I said in our War Hero review.
Yeah.
When I would all in deep about Uncle Joe's scarring past.
I thought you would like that.
It's so sad.
I was really happy when I hit upon that thought.
You're like, I'm gonna make Victoria cry.
I think Thomas took the box finding surprisingly well, considering.
Well, he said he was going to be okay with it, but still,
well, I know
what you mean.
I realized that, but he didn't even pause when they told him, nor was he taken aback by the fact that it was found, or that it was found by Dwayne.
Do you think, like, each
or by
day
what Dwayne said to him?
Each day he woke up and he's like, I wonder if today's the day they find the box.
Probably. It's an incredible burden to bear. Oh, how coincidental. He said, I won't ask for your forgiveness because I know that's impossible to get. And I was like, yeah, I was totally right about him becoming a doctor so that he could gain inner peace. And I thought he was a lot like Carla Jex from A Town Called Mercy.
Doctor Who episode, just so you guys know.
Well, we already talked about it earlier. If they're paying attention,
Not really.
They should
Very
know.
Much.
And Jack is the best.
Jack is the best.
This guy's been convicted of murder and exposed for his crimes after an entire lifetime of guilt and looking over his shoulder nervously, and Jack just swoops in to be a friend and comfort and share Jesus with him without judging. Yeah, Jack.
I have to get a little snippy with Eugene in this one, because what was he thinking giving Jared, like, all the clues to go and hunt down a murderer?
I'll tell you what he was thinking, Victoria. You look at Jared and the way that he handles mysteries, do you really think that he would have solved it?
But he did solve it.
Yes, but knowing Jared before that, would you expect Jared to have solved it or to have blamed it on a giant World War II cover-up conspiracy?
This is one of the only Jared episodes where there's no conspiracies. I find that very interesting considering this stuff they dealt with, like murder and kind of secrecy and stuff. You would
Detective pencils.
Yeah, you would think out of like all episodes where there'd be like a lot of conspiracy stuff from Jared, there is not, which totally leads me into my rant.
I think it's the fact that he realized how serious this was for once compared to the things he usually conspiracizes about.
So,
okay,
been preparing myself.
I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah. I always internal rant about this every single time I listen to this episode. So, one of the reasons I love this episode so much is because even though I love Jared so much, and I love his personality and his conspiracy theories, this episode, instead of, because if you listen to that comic foil bonus thing on whatever album, if you have the albums in Adventures in Odyssey, there's one about comic foils throughout the series, and one of the ones they name are Dwayne and Jared. And for those of you people who like Homestuck, Dwayne and Jared are like a perfect example of moirails, for lack of a better term. Moirails are like one person keeps the other person firmly in line so they don't go all crazy or something like that. Jared and Dwayne are like a perfect example of this, because Jared's always going crazy with his conspiracy theories and Dwayne keeps him in line. And when Dwayne goes all crazy with his jokes and stuff like that, Jared runs in the other direction. But that is not the point I'm trying to make.
Props to my sister for using the actual correct definition of moirail as opposed to 99% of the Homestuck fandom who just considers it to mean BFFs.
No.
Good job, Victoria.
Thank you. But I know what it is because Gabe is my moirail.
Well, I know. I'm just saying most people just consider it to mean like best friends or soulmates.
It does not. Anyway, so.
Not that it can't be also that, but.
So in this episode, the thing I love the most about it and find the most interesting is, for once, it is not Jared who's the one that goes off the deep end. It is Dwayne. Firmly planted in reality most of the time, and usually pretty calm unless Jared really gets him excited or makes him dress up like a bush or something like that.
Or a girl.
Or a girl. And the one who always keeps Jared in line and knows what to do with him. This episode, all the roles are reversed. So when Dwayne realizes what happened to his great-great-grandfather, someone he didn't even know, but still, like, it's sensible to feel upset about it, like anyone would. So when he realizes what happened to him, this is not just, we're gonna go solve the mystery kind of deal. This is, I want to go get revenge on him and yell at him for what he did to my family kind of deal.
At least he wasn't planning on murdering him, at least, which is good.
Well, it's not that kind of revenge, Devin. It's a kid show.
I know. Yes, it definitely
Yeah,
is. Not
show.
like there'd be any murderers on this show or in this specific episode.
No. So, I totally... Okay, so I think the best moment of Jared trying to calm Dwayne down when Dwayne goes all crazy is when they're actually at the hospital, and I just love that scene so much. Don't you? And Jared just starts, like, he sees Thomas, and then he's like, and then he just kind of explodes with all the anger he's been facing for... They don't actually say how long they've been since they found the box, like how much time
How many hours
goes across this episode. I don't know if it's a day or like...
I would say it's pretty clear it's less than a day.
Okay, I always thought it'd be like 2 days or something like that.
I'm pretty sure it's less than a day.
Anyway, so like all the anger that's been...
Well, I mean, the last scene was the next day or the day after that, but...
All the anger that's been building up from Dwayne, from one of his family members that he never even met being murdered, and everything, and not just the murder of his great-great-grandfather, also what Thomas did to Rachel. Dwayne read the letter, he knew what Rachel said. At that point, he had already known what he'd done long enough. He got to the point where he didn't even care anymore. So he's just going all at him, yelling at Thomas what he did, and then Jared is the one who comes in and tries to calm him down. Holy crap! I love this episode so much. Like, in any other situation, you could totally see the exact opposite thing happening. Jared is a kind person when you really look at him, and at certain points, he is firmly grasping reality. Some very rare points, but they are there. This is one of them. This is such a good episode. And Jared can get out of hand most of the time, pretty much always, but at this perfect moment, he's just like, no, we are not doing this. You always look out for me, so I'm gonna look out for you. I have to stop you from what you're going to do in this situation. So he makes Dwayne stop and calm down, and he gets Dwayne to give Dr. Newcastle the letter, which Dwayne could have, if you think about it, he could have ripped it up at any moment, thrown it out, burnt it, or done anything with it, but instead he says, here, this is something that my great-grandmother would have wanted you to have. That is why I love this episode.
That was a fantastically astute analytical point, Victoria.
Thank you. Anyone who does not like this episode, come talk to me. I want to find out why.
I think we both hit on very good analytical points on this episode.
Honestly, if you don't like this episode, I won't be mad. I just want to hear your reasoning. So.
And that brings us to the end. Before we give our ratings, we have one more thing, of course. From the official guide, there's one little blurb about this episode. So I read and I quote, "My take," by John Beebe. "I'm fascinated by history, and I thought it'd be fascinating to unearth a time capsule in buried sin. Except a very different kind of time capsule that contains a murder confession. By the way, people ask all the time if this is the same Dr. Newcastle who appeared in Mysterious Stranger, album 18. Yes, it is, and yes, that was on purpose." So.
I'm so happy. I'm very self-satisfied with myself right now.
Good, so am I.
Yeah.
So, Victoria, final ratings.
I give this all
1.5.
the stars in the night sky that loom overhead.
Sound like Javert.
Thank you.
I don't think you should really need to elaborate that on that much. I think you've already...
Yeah, I thought about elaborating.
I think you've already justified your rating.
I think my rant was good enough justification of my rating, like you just said.
I think so.
So, what about you?
I am also going to give
Did
this
what I
episode
said
5 out of 5.
raised your opinion of this episode?
It did, and it was already very high. I would have given it 5 anyways, I think, and then you delivered that rant.
You know, I didn't even think lots of that stuff I was just coming up with spur of the moment.
Well, it sounded very good.
Like, I was only going to say this stuff about just role reversal, but then I came up with all that.
Well, even in and of itself, you know, the fact that
I didn't think
you're
of that.
talking about a role reversal.
I think the favorite thing I said
cool. I'd
was
never thought
the
about
last
that.
couple things about their letter, which I thought of at that
Now
moment.
I'm angry that the Jared compilation at the end of Strange Boy in a Strange Land left out this moment in lieu of the crickets.
This, in my opinion, okay, this is my second favorite Jared episode. Are we going to announce what the next review is? Probably not yet.
Not yet.
Next episode we will. But even though this is my second favorite Jared episode, this is probably one of my favorite Jared moments of the whole series. This is one of the episodes in Odyssey where I can just listen to it on loop, and I have for like a week, and I'm still not tired of it. Yeah. My favorite episode, the one we're gonna review in 2 weeks, I literally, before we put the episodes in iTunes and stuff, I had that CD in my player for multiple weeks. I just listened to the same episode.
I know, but you said the same
over and
scene,
over again.
like the same, like
no, not the same scene.
moment over and over
Not
for a
the
week.
same
That's what
scene.
you said. So.
I meant the same episode. So, yeah, I think Buried Sin is probably my second favorite Adventures in Odyssey episode of all time. I don't think I need to go into any more reasons. Do you want to say anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to justify my rating just a little bit, just to sum up. Even though, yeah, like we said, I think it's already justified. Buried Sin is a very, very, very well written episode.
Dang straight.
The story is mature and interesting. It has a great continuity callback. There's a lot of implied emotional stuff, both in what I said about Rachel's forgiveness to overcome her probable perceptions of forgiveness in society, and how Thomas jilted her, and Thomas and the way, you know, his becoming a doctor to try and atone for sins and feeling he couldn't earn the forgiveness, which is what brought him to the emotional peak of getting the letter. The role reversal, like Victoria said, of Jared and Dwayne, and flipping their foil around.
The hospital scene is
Yeah.
the best scene in the episode. Next to that, I'd say the library scene is the best one. Because
Detective Pencil.
the jokes, all the humor surrounding Jared in the entire series is just so good.
And shout out to my boy Gregor Mendel.
Sorry, I dissed you. I didn't know you. I thought you just did the P thing. I thought it sounded dumb. But you did
No.
other stuff too.
Yeah.
It was cool.
He founded genetics, the field
Is
of
he
genetics.
Dead? Is he dead?
Yes, he's
Okay.
dead. Lived in the 1800s, so yes, he's dead.
I take off my hat to you, sir. And now putting my hat back on with the camera's hard. Okay. There.
So yes, 5 out of 5. That's my justification. It's a very good episode. A++. And that is all. So, next time on the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
That sounded like Batman.
No, it didn't. If I do that, I'd be like, next time on the Adventures in Odyssey
I was
Oddcast.
about to say is the next one the lore one, but that one was just released.
That was the last episode,
Is
Victoria.
it the interview?
Yes.
We are going to be interviewing Garret Vandenberg. It totally hasn't happened yet.
As you already know, we already talked about it in past episodes, but
And
yes, so who's Garret Vandenberg, Victoria? The public wants to know.
he plays multiple characters, chiefly
Yes, that's Zipper, Victoria.
yes, it is. My brain stopped working.
Plays multiple characters on what?
The ceiling fan.
Yes.
What's his name? I can't. Aaron! Oh man, I'm so tired. I did 3 exams earlier today. I'm so tired.
Aaron Wiley.
Yeah.
And Farron as well.
Yeah.
On the Ceiling Fan podcast, he's the co-host of the Odyssey Scoopcast. He's a musician. He also has a number of bands that just released their first EP. He does lots of stuff. It's cool. He's cool. So please check out our interview next week when we talk to him about all various sorts of very gallimaufry things.
Also find out some interesting ceiling fan trivia.
Yes. If you are a fan of the Ceiling Fan, then you'll
If
definitely
you're a ceiling fan like I am.
Is that what the fans are called? Is there like a fandemonym for the Ceiling Fan? Is it
I
like
think it's ceiling fan, but I'm not sure.
Like just Ceiling Fan or Ceiling Fan or Ceiling Fanception? I don't know.
I think we're called ceiling fans.
Okay.
Woo!
So, until then, I've been Devin Francis.
And I've been a lover of this episode.
And you've been watching
The
Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Love saying that at the same time.
Oh, so satisfying.
It is. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.